Chapter 13. It was a silent journey to Ezenzeleni, and though Msimangu tried to converse with his friend during the walk from the station to the place of the blind, the older man was little inclined for speech and showed little interest in anything about him. "What will you do while I am here?" asked Msimangu. "I should like to sit in one of these places that you told me of, and perhaps when you are finished you will show me round this Ezenzeleni." "You shall do what you will. You must not be disappointed in me." "I understand everything. There is no need to talk of it again." So he introduced Kumalo to the European superintendent, who called him Mr. Kumalo, which is not the custom, and Msimangu must have spoken privately to the superintendent, for they did not worry him to come with them. Instead, the superintendent led him to the place where the ground fell away, and told him they would call him when it was time for food. For some hours he sat there in the sun, and whether it was the warmth of it, or the sight of the wide plain beneath stretching away to blue and distant mountains, or the mere passage of time, or the divine providence for the soul that is distressed, he could not say, but there was some rising of the spirit, some lifting of the fear. Yes, it was true what Msimango had said. Why fear the one thing in a great city where there were thousands upon thousands of people? His son had gone astray in the great city, where so many others had gone astray before him, and where many others would go astray after him, until there was found some great secret that as yet no man had discovered. But that he should kill a man, a white man, there was nothing that he could remember, nothing at all, that could make it probable. His thoughts turned to the girl and to the unborn babe that would be his grandchild. Pity that he, a priest, should have a grandchild born in such a fashion. Yet that could be repaired. If they were married, then he could try to rebuild what had been broken. Perhaps his son and the girl would go back with him to Indocheni. Perhaps he and his wife could give to the child what they had failed to give to their own. Yet where had they failed? What had they done or left undone that their son had become a thief, moving like a vagabond from place to place, living with a girl who was herself no more than a child, father of a child who would have had no name? Yet he comforted himself. That was Johannesburg. And yet again, and the fear smote him as grievously as ever, his son had left the girl and the unborn child, left the work that the young white man had got for him, and was vagabond again. And what did vagabonds do? Did they not live without law or custom, without faith or purpose? Might they not then lift their hand against any other, any man who stood between them and the pitiful gain that they were seeking? What broke in a man when he could bring himself to kill another? What broke when he could bring himself to thrust down the knife into the warm flesh, to bring down the axe on the living head, to cleave down between the seeing eyes, to shoot the gun that would drive death into the beating heart? With a shudder he turned from contemplation of so terrible a thing, yet the contemplation of it reassured him. For there was nothing in all the years at Indocheni, nothing in all the years of the boyhood of his son that could make it possible for him to do so terrible a deed. Yes, Msimangu was right. It was the suspense, the not knowing, that made him fear this one thing in a great city where there were thousands upon thousands of people. He turned with relief to the thought of rebuilding, to the home that they would fashion, he and his wife, in the evening of their lives, for Gertrude and her son, and for his son and the girl and the child. After seeing Johannesburg, he would return with a deeper understanding of Indocheni, yes, and with a greater humility, for had his own sister not been a prostitute? And his son a thief, and might not he himself be grandfather to a child that would have no name? This he thought without bitterness, though with pain. One could go back knowing better the things that one fought against, knowing better the kind of things one must build. He would go back with a new and quickened interest in the school, not as a place where children learned to read and write and count only, but as a place where they might be prepared for life in any place to which they might go. Oh, for education for his people, for schools up and down the land, where something might be built that would serve them when they went away to the towns, something that would take the place of the tribal law and custom. For a moment he was caught up in a vision, as man so often is when he sits in a place of ashes and destruction. Yes, it was true then. He had admitted it to himself. The tribe was broken and would be mended no more. He bowed his head. It was as though a man borne upward into the air felt suddenly that the wings of miracle dropped away from him, so that he looked down upon the earth, sick with fear and apprehension. The tribe was broken, and would be mended no more. The tribe that had nurtured him, and his father's father, was broken. For the men were away, and the young men and the girls were away, and the maize hardly reached to the height of man. There is food for us, my brother, already. You have been here a long time. I did not know it. And what have you found? Nothing. Nothing. No, nothing. Only more fear and more pain. There is nothing in the world but fear and pain. My brother, what is it? I hesitate to speak to you. You have a right to speak, more right than any. Then I say that it is time to turn. This is madness. That is bad enough, but it is also a sin which is worse. I speak to you as a priest. Kamalo bowed his head. You are right, father, he said. I must sit here no longer. It was a wonderful place, this Ezenzeleni, for here the blind that dragged out their days in a world they could not see, here they had eyes given to them. Here they made things that he, for all his sight, could never make. Baskets stout and strong, and osiers of different colors, and these osiers ran through one another by some magic that he did not understand, coming together in patterns, the red with the red, the blue with the blue, under the seeing and sightless hands. He talked with the people, and the blind eyes glowed with something that could only have been fire in the soul. It was white men who did this work of mercy, and some of them spoke English and some Afrikaans. Yes, those who spoke English and those who spoke Afrikaans came together to open the eyes of black men that were blind. His friend Msimangu would preach this afternoon in the chapel that he had seen, but because they were not all of one church here, there was no altar with a cross upon it, but the cross was in the wall itself, two open clefts that had been left open and not filled in by the bricks. And Msimangu would not wear the vestments that he would wear at Sophiatown, those he would wear early the next morning, when he ministered to his own people. Msimangu opened the book and read to them first from the book, and Kamalo had not known that his friend had such a voice, for the voice was of gold, and the voice had love for the words it was reading. The voice shook and beat and trembled, not as the voice of an old man shakes and beats and trembles, nor as a leaf shakes and beats and trembles, but as a deep bell when it is struck. For it was not only a voice of gold, but it was the voice of a man whose heart was golden, reading from a book of golden words. And the people were silent, and Kamala was silent, for when are three such things found in one place together? I, the Lord, have called thee in righteousness, and will hold thine hand, and will keep thee, and give thee for a covenant of the people, for a light of the Gentiles, to open the blind eyes, to bring out the prisoners from the prison, and them that sit in darkness out of the prison house. And then the voice rose, and the Zulu tongue was lifted and transfigured, and the man too was lifted, as is one who comes to something that is greater than any of us. And the people were silent, for were they not the people of the blind eyes? And Kamala was silent, knowing the blind man for whom Msimangu was reading these words. And I will bring the blind by a way they knew not. I will lead them in paths that they have not known. I will make darkness light before them, and crooked things straight. These things I will do unto them, and not forsake them. Yes, he speaks to me, there is no doubt of it. He says we are not forsaken. For while I wonder for what we live and struggle and die, for while I wonder what keeps us living and struggling, men are sent to minister to the blind. White men are sent to minister to the black blind. Who gives at this 1 hour a friend to make darkness light before me? Who gives at this 1 hour wisdom to one so young, for the comfort of one so old? Who gives to me compassion for a girl my son has left? Yes, he speaks to me in such quiet and such simple words. We are grateful for the saints, he says, who lift up the heart in the days of our distress. Would we do less? For do we less, there are no saints to lift up any heart. If Christ be Christ, he says, true Lord of heaven, true Lord of men, what is there that we would not do, no matter what our suffering may be? I hear you, my brother. There is no word I do not hear. He is finishing. I can hear it in his voice. One can know that what is said, is rounded, is finished, it is perfection. He opens the book and reads again. He reads to me. Hast thou not known, hast thou not heard, that the everlasting God, the Lord, the Creator of the ends of the earth, fainteth not, neither is weary? And the voice rises again, and the Zulu tongue is lifted and transfigured, and the man too is lifted. Even the youths shall faint and be weary, and the young men shall utterly fall, but they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. They shall run and not be weary, and they shall walk and not faint. The people sigh, and Kamalo sighs, as though this is a great word that has been spoken. And indeed, this Msimango is known as a preacher. It is good for the government, they say in Johannesburg, that Msimango preaches of a world not made by hands, for he touches people at the hearts and sends them marching to heaven instead of to Pretoria. And there are white people who marvel and say, what words to come from the son of a barbarian people, who not long since plundered and slaughtered in thousands and tens of thousands under the most terrible chief of all. Yet he is despised by some, for this golden voice that could raise a nation speaks always thus. For this place of suffering, from which men might escape if some such voice could bind them all together, is for him no continuing city. They say he preaches of a world not made by hands, while in the streets about him men suffer and struggle and die. They ask what folly it is that can so seize upon a man. What folly is it that seizes upon so many of their people, making the hungry patient, the suffering content, the dying at peace? And how fools listen to him, silent and rapt, sighing when he is done, feeding their empty bellies on his empty words. Kumalo goes to him. Brother, I am recovered. Msimango's face lights up, but he talks humbly. There is no pride or false constraint. I have tried every way to touch you, he says, but I could not come near. So give thanks and be satisfied.